Hello and welcome to another edition of Paydirt Remote. I'm Michael Washbourne and today I'm joined by New Century Resources Managing Director Patrick Walta. Welcome, Pat.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for having me in this forum.
Pat, a big announcement for New Century this week with the potential acquisition of the Goro nickel and cobalt project in New Caledonia. Tell us about what it is you like about this project.
The announcement regarding the potential acquisition of the Goro nickel and cobalt project is obviously an exciting development for New Century, albeit a preliminary step in the process. So we still have a number of steps in our due diligence process and obviously negotiation of final financial outcomes.
Pat, can you tell us about how this opportunity came about?
So Vale ran a formal process, or are running a formal process for the sale of the Goro nickel and cobalt mine, which was publicly flagged late last year. We entered that process. Obviously, it's a competitive process that is going on, and we've now been made the preferred bidder, or we have exclusivity to finalise the transaction with Goro.
Why do you think this is a good fit for New Century?
What we do tend to target is sunk capital. So similar parallels to the Century mine, a vast amount of sunk capital over the last decade, ultimately has metallurgical challenges that are required to be overcome. And we think we have that skill set to assist with the simplification plan that's already been outlined and ultimately drive the costs of that operation down. And assuming those two things can be achieved, which is the task ahead should we take the project on, you've got a fantastic ore body there that has production capabilities for many years to come.
You've now entered into a 60-day exclusivity period, which I think is going to take you up to the end of July. Tell us what it is that is going to occupy your time to complete your due diligence of the project.
The company has already completed some fairly extensive technical due diligence, particularly around site visits prior to the COVID-19 shutdowns, independent experts in various areas to assess on the technical merits of the current operations and also the simplification plan. However, there's a whole raft of continued due diligence requirements around commercial, tax, legal, and further technical due diligence that is required. And as an aside from that, we're also working with Vale around completing financing arrangements and funding arrangements going forward, and also working with Vale around liaising with the French state for further potential financing as well.
New Century recently welcomed IGO as a major shareholder. Is there a potential role for that company in this transaction?
It's great to have IGO on our registry as a major shareholder there. It's very advantageous to have a $3 billion nickel miner when you're assessing a potential nickel mine acquisition in itself. And we certainly see, as flagged in our release, we see some opportunities to grow the relationship with IGO over time, particularly around offtake potential.
New Century is already a top 10 zinc producer, and if you complete this acquisition, you'll end up being a top 10 nickel and cobalt producer as well. So clearly you're not afraid to be a big player in the market.
When you're dealing with these sorts of projects and these sorts of opportunities, you invariably are targeting large sunk capital projects, which does lead you towards majors or assets that the majors hold, and they typically have some fantastic resources associated with them. So the scale of the project is always there, but it also means that the scale of the prize is significant as well. So, as you said, we managed to restart the Century mine, and as we announced recently, it's now been re-established as a top 10 zinc producer, which is great. And there is a similar opportunity with Goro. We'll probably be top 5 in terms of non-DRC sourced cobalt. So very much an electric vehicle thematic involved with Goro, and also there's an ethical supply chain thematic inside the business as another opportunity.
Goro has had a checkered history of underperformance for quite a number of years. What is it you think that New Century can do differently to what Vale have done in the last couple of years?
Checkered history, I think, is an understatement. It's quite well known that the difficulties that have plagued Goro really since it started up over a decade ago. So a lot of the work we've done has been focused on the major areas of those problems, the downtime events and the reduction in performance. And what it's really highlighted is that there are two key areas within the flow sheet that the business needs to eliminate. First one is the refinery. So in the refinery itself, it converts post the HPAL, it converts that nickel in solution to nickel oxide. And that refinery has been plagued with a lot of problems over the course of the operations, around 40 to 50% of the historical downtime. Now, the simple solution there is to shut the refinery down. And so by shutting the refinery down, diverting all of the feed to the MHP production and obviously expanding the footprint of that facility, you can remove that problem associated with the refinery and ultimately expand your MHP production, which taps right into the emerging electric vehicle market. The other one is the feed as well. So historically, they have fed two types of ore into the plant, one being saprolite and the other being limonite. By removing the saprolite from the feed, you provide a much simple, steady supply of clean material going into the plant, and you can fix those performance parameters, reducing your reagent costs in there. The simple solution for what do you do with all the excess saprolite is you export it. So Vale at the moment is obtaining an export license to actually directly ship that saprolite ore, and that will be implemented over the course of this year. That will allow that export and ultimately another revenue stream for the business.
And Pat, there are not many people in Australia, I'd imagine, that are familiar with governance and law in New Caledonia. Is there a potential jurisdictional risk for New Century Resources in doing this transaction?
New Caledonia itself is a French territory. The country is a mining country. I mean, there are three major nickel mines on the country, one of them being Goro, and there's a significant portion of the GDP of the country is associated with mining, and all of it is nickel mining itself.
Are there any potential synergies that you can take over from Century into Goro if you go ahead with the acquisition?
Well, we've absolutely generated a lot of learnings from the ramp up, the brownfield management and ramp up of the Century mine, and obviously those learnings will be applied, or should we acquire the project, will be applied to the development of Goro itself.
Well, Pat, no doubt you're going to be a very busy man over the next couple of months, and best of luck with this exclusivity period, and hopefully I'm talking to you again real soon about the completion of the acquisition.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. There's still plenty of water to go under the bridge, but it's certainly something that we're excited about progressing.